We need at our table of awareness the logician, but equally we need the intuitive, we need the mystic.
I almost died. I was allowed to go to the very precipice of death, of life and death, and look over the edge. And I was allowed to behold what was there and allowed to come back. Most people aren't.
When we talk about being aligned with ourself or being aligned with our soul or hearing our higher self, that's really what we're talking about, is being connected to that divine part of ourself, that light-filled part of us that is connected to God energy, that is connected to everybody here and every experience we've ever had.
If more doctors, more professionals can open up to use intuitive gifts in their work, that's really important.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, mediumship, near-death experiences, consciousness, and what it all means. You've all heard me talk about my spiritual journey, but I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this story that I shared. I'm not really sure exactly where I've shared it, but where I brought people in very early on for me to do my practice internship readings. If you've listened to me on other podcasts, you've heard me probably talk about this. And one of the people that was critical in making this happen is my guest on today's show. Years ago, I was introduced to Lizzi Cutler. She was at the beginning of her energetic spiritual journey. I was kind of in the middle of early parenting and trying to avoid my spiritual opening. And she pushed me. She pushed me to do readings. And she said, let's do a reading and let's have people come over and we'll read for them. And in that reading, something remarkable happened. The person I was reading for had, her father-in-law had passed away. And in the reading, a lot came through, but really there was this evidential piece that came through where her father-in-law showed me a ring. And in that ring was a blue stone. And this woman went home and she shared the story with her husband, and her husband really dismissed it. He said, my dad never wore jewelry. This might not have even been him that came through in the reading. Well, sure enough, my friend's husband goes home to his house where he grew up. He happened to be going home that weekend. And in that process, he gets home and his mom walks into the room and says, I think you would like this. This is something of your dad's. I just found it. And sure enough, it was the ring with the exact stone, exactly how I had described it. And this was a pivotal moment for me because this really kind of catapulted me into, holy cow, those weren't exactly the words I used, but what is happening? There is something more. I don't understand. I want to understand. I want to know how this all works. And my point in telling you all of this for my intro today is because Lizzi was the person who pushed me in that direction. So I am so excited to welcome Lizzi Cutler on my show today. Lizzi is a transformational coach with a proven track record of helping high achievers and individuals seeking deeper personal growth, overcome stress, and remove emotional and energetic blockages. So Lizzi uses this amazing technique in her energy work. She integrates quantum healing, guided visualization, and emotional clearing to help her clients achieve these tools of self-awareness, balance, and professional growth. I am so excited for you to hear this interview today. And with that, here's today's interview with Lizzi Cutler. Welcome, Lizzi, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
So this has been a conversation that's been a long time coming. And when I say long time, I don't just mean when we spoke this summer, because our relationship goes way, way back to us both kind of coming into our spiritual selves more deeply. And we connected years ago. I mean, I don't even know, probably
I can tell you,
7.
it was 2013 or 14.
Oh my God, it was that long ago.
Yeah. I was just starting this.
Yeah. And so we were both kind of in this space of like spiritually in the closet a little bit, spirituality in the way that we're going to talk about it today really wasn't is out there, probably mostly because social media is now more out there, but there wasn't really people talking about connecting to the other side, connecting to past lives, connecting to dead loved ones who had passed. It was not in the zeitgeist. And so we would whisper about it, and then people would connect us. People would connect me, connect you to other people who were also talking about this under the radar. So tell everybody kind of where people know where I went from, because one of the stories that I share is a story where we did readings together and something came through in the reading for someone I was reading for. And that really kind of even pushed me and propelled me forward. But where did it kind of the journey take you?
Okay, so it's actually very interesting to be sharing this with you because we were friends so early in this, but I was living in Japan for my then husband's job, and I was teaching yoga and meditation there. I did my training out there. And while I was meditating, stuff started getting louder and louder. When I say stuff, like I could feel energy, I could feel things moving, and I thought I was just dizzy or just like my allergies were weird or whatever. And when I came home back to Chicago, I was actually getting divorced. And someone connected me to you. And because I had said while I was getting divorced, something happened. It was like the catalyst that opened everything up. And I started having these awarenesses of knowing somebody was going to text me and then my phone would light up, or thinking about a yoga client and that I hadn't seen in months, and then she would turn the corner to my next class. Like, it was so obvious and so blatant that I couldn't ignore the random synchronicities anymore. And then I was telling a friend about it. She connected me to you. She said, you got to talk to my friend Amy. You connected me to someone else who I did like a sort of training with. And in that training, this woman very luckily said, you need to figure out the way you hear and the way you experience this gift. This is the way I do. We need to figure out how you do. And that was sort of a jumping point for me of her giving me the space to explore these different things. And from there, I started meeting a bunch of different people. It was like the universe kind of said, like, okay, the door is open now. The floodgates are going to come in.
Right.
And I started meeting different healers and psychics and intuitives and all the different names that we use for kind of the same thing. And I was very lucky in that I had a lot of people that would show me how they used their gift and then offer me space to practice mine. And it was really as simple as having people come to my house and seeing what I could do, and then having people show me a photo and see if I was accurate, and then getting a phone number with just a first name so that I knew I couldn't look anybody up, and having a, quote unquote session to see what could I read for you in an hour, and am I accurate? So it was really a lot of me trying things with people who were willing to let me test it out on them. Mm-hmm. And then from that, taking what worked for me and genuinely leaving behind what didn't. Like Reiki, I didn't feel it.
Yeah. And I think everything you're talking about is so important. One of the highlights of this year is spiritual health is mental health. And this is like the perfect, you were my first conversation of the year. And of course, it's kicking off perfectly, because that's exactly what I think when we talk about this work is there isn't a prescriptive way to do it. You kind of forge your own path and you figure out what works for you, what speaks to you. Like you said, Reiki doesn't speak to you. It doesn't really speak to me either. Astrology, I can't wrap my mind around. Like, I don't get it. But for someone else, that is their means into understanding more spiritual work. So I just want to kind of highlight that for people.
It was really important to me. Anytime, even now, anytime a healer or a teacher or a book, I don't care how big and how famous they are, anytime they say this is how you have to do it, like a wall goes up in me. And I hear loud in my head and I feel this visceral sense of, don't tell me what to do, which is just my personality type. Like the second you tell me, now I can't do it. And also, that's not a fact. That's the fact of how it works for you. But I am a different creature here. And so don't tell me there are 8 layers of this thing that I have to work through, because maybe for me there are 10 and maybe there are only 4. So don't set me up with your 8. And I'm I almost get a little feisty
I
around
can hear
being
it already.
told. Yeah, it drives me insane. And I have clients come to me who will say, well, I know I have to do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, no, screw all of that. Throw all of that out the window. Let's just be curious about how it works for you. I think 100% of us have this gift. I think 100% of us are connected to divine source spirit and can intuitively get information in certain ways.
Yep.
100% of us. And I think it's just a matter of figuring out how it works for each individual being.
So, okay, so you're going through this process, and what do you find kind of along the way for you? What really stands out for you, and what skills and intuitive hits and clairs do you really find along the way that resonate with you and that feel like this is how I'm going to do this work? Because we're now both in very different places in terms of like what we were kind of trying to figure out and where we are now. And so I just love to hear other people's paths.
So I'm not sure that I have a particular category that I can shimmy myself into, but the way that the work works for me is when I'm with a client or a group of clients, I'm shown. So I have the clairvoyance, where I can see like an outline of the person's body, and I can feel, so the clairsentient, I can feel where things are stuck. And then I sort of hear, see, know what it is that's connected to it. And I know that sounds really confusing, but what's happening for me is I lay down on my couch and I'm on Zoom. I only like I really strongly prefer working in Zoom because being in person to me feels like there's too much, it's too loud. It's like overwhelming in the moment. It's like the volume is up too high on the speakers and you almost can't hear it anymore. It's not that I can't work in person. I just prefer to have some space.
And again, like this is so important because this is how you've developed your skill set. Like you've noticed how to calibrate those frequencies for yourself. Totally.
I have done events in person and stuff, and it's fine. It's just not my fave. So when I lay down, I can feel and hear and see where someone has energy that is stuck. And by stuck, I mean your soul, in my opinion, my soul, our souls are trying to communicate with us where our next block is to unravel, where our next knot is to unwind. And I can feel and see and hear where that is and where it's showing up for you physically and what the emotional connection is to it. So the way that I understand it is that our soul communicates to us through our emotional and physical bodies. It's the easiest way for it to get our attention because usually when we're uncomfortable, we pay attention, and when we're comfortable, we coast. And so there's some kind of discomfort that for whatever reason I'm able to tap into, and then I'm able to put language to it. And once I can put language to it, something happens for the person receiving it. There's not only the validation of, holy crap, no one's ever been able to say it like that. And yes, I've been feeling that my whole life. But once our conscious adult thinking mind can see it, what seems to happen is something in the inner child's subconscious mind shifts, where like it feels like we know the universe says yes to our energy, not to what we say. And for most of us, our inner child, what I've experienced is that our inner child is running the vibrational motherboard. And so once that starts shifting, then the 3D reality around us can start shifting. So by giving language to something that was experienced as a child that either is no longer in the main memory field, and actually this will be a very cool conversation. I would love your feedback on this. I'm usually being able to pick up, okay, here's what happened when you were between the ages of 5 and 10, here's where it's being stored in your body. It might feel like your left hip is stiff. It's not stiff. Here's what's going on. And I'll either get insight on how I can clear it for the client, or I'll get insight on how they can clear it. And that's usually the shift enough to start the momentum moving, to get the snowball going down the hill.
So when you get the information about what is stuck, like let's kind of drill this down even further. Like, give me an example. So between 5 and 10, your parents got divorced, and I'm just literally making this up.
I can give you an example.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So for certain clients, if I feel a stiffness or a tightness in their low back, I can see and feel exactly where it is, right? So I'll say like, okay, I'm in the front of your sacrum on the left side, down 2 inches from the top. And this is why I like being on Zoom, because I'll get up and show you where I am. And I certainly am no doctor, so I'm not always using the right terms. And what I'm seeing is an image of you walking into your childhood home. Your mom is there. You're intuitively taking the temperature of what kind of mood your mom is in, because you never knew if it was going to be good, bad, or ugly. And you're shape-shifting into what you think you want her to be. And we need you to let go of that shapeshifter pattern. And here's where it's living. And I'll clear it out. So I'll see like a chunk of gravel there that they'll show me, like, go grab that and give it back to us. So it's like I'm like a little Sherpa. Yeah. So I'll literally in my mind's eye, I'll scoop the thing out. I'll hand it back to sort of my higher self and the client's higher self, who are there to take it and neutralize it and like just turn it into neutral energy. And then they'll have me go back in with, I'll say like, okay, now I have this gel on my hands. It feels like warm Neosporin, and I'm sort of smearing it over that spot where I just took that chunk of gravel out. We're healing it and we're restoring it with pure positive white light. And now what they want you to know in order to keep that clear is every time you feel that tweak in your low back, it's them reminding you just shapeshifted. And so every time you feel that thing, I want you to see it as them just gently nudging you so that you are aware of what you just subconsciously did. And sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's a little more like as I'm working on the low back, I'll feel like I just felt that in your right shoulder. I'm going to get there in a second. I know that you're there. Just give me a second to get there. Or I'll feel a lump in their throat. And there's usually some resistance to fully letting everything go. Because the reality is that gravel in your low back that I was just trying to clear, you programmed it there when you were a small child, because you thought it would keep you safer. And it did, right? It was the reminder to shapeshift, because it was safer to shapeshift than to come in thinking everything was great. And mom meets you with, why are you so loud? Why, right? Like you're met with some kind of rejection.
Right.
So that chunk of gravel actually did keep you safe. The challenge is the universe is still saying yes to, it's not safe for me to be authentically me, when being met by mom's rejection is no longer a daily threat. And so as we teach the conscious adult thinking rational you that it is safe for you to step into your authentic self, and you're safe doing that, we really slowly move into that, then some of those physical and emotional discomforts can release, because they no longer are required to keep you safe. And we do this slowly, because I have found it allows the nervous system time to see I'm okay without that fear there, versus me just like yanking everything out. To me, anytime I've tried to do that, my nervous system freaks out and says like, are you out of your mind? Give me that back.
Right. Because from a psychological perspective, what you're actually doing is you're stripping away the defenses that have served the person in their life, right? You're taking away the thing that most kept them protected. I'm not familiar with IFS really, but like the part of oneself that would, it's also like self-psychology is kind of this notion of like, we fragment, we kind of break into parts. And what it sounds like you're doing is like working to put back together to the whole, to that authentic self. And so
I like the way you just said that. Yeah.
The person who is, responding in all their relationships, right? I always like to go back to, do you remember the movie The Runaway Bride?
Yeah.
When he says, which eggs do you like? And she's like, well, which eggs do you like? right? Like she can't make a decision based on her own sense of self because she's always conformed to other people. Like that image of like coming back to like, who are you, tuning in? And that's what you're doing here. It sounds like is you're getting the person in this situation to look at, okay, what are these unconscious experiences that you had that shaped how you responded to other people and who you were, and that covered up your true authentic self.
Yeah. And what I've experienced with myself and with my clients is that I know the vibration when I tap into it because I've never not known my adult thinking life without it there, right? It was there by the time I was 10 and it had already been practiced for years by the time I was 10. So by the time I had an analytical thinking, conscious adult brain, I was already running on autopilot with all of that programming. So what I, Lizzie, am doing for the person sitting across from me is helping them put words to that old vibration, thanking it, honoring it, and then showing the client how to shift it. Which then, once you change your vibration, you change your reality.
Right. So in that, so you do kind of the energetic piece of maybe healing that. I really like that image of like Neosporin, like you're actually healing that wound. And then what would typically the client or the person do in their life? Like, is there homework to do? You know, you say like when you feel that tweak, notice like that's you, that's your body maybe going into old patterns or whatever it is. Then what?
The then what is, so this is twofold. One, I don't tend to give homework because when I am given homework, I don't do it. So I try not to be unrealistic on we're all busy and we all get back into the swing of things. Really, the bulk of the work happens in the session. And then what it's about is observing. So the next time that we meet, if I see you again, I ask you to keep a list of triggers because your triggers are your highlighter of what's next. And in the spirit of, as long as I'm in this human 3D zip-up suit, there is work to be done. And when I am finished working on this human zip-up suit, I get to transition back to source. I'm never done, right? So there's always going to be something triggering me. There's always going to be something new to become more aware of. And so the only thing that I really ask people to do in between is to pay attention. And so the next time that we sit down together, and as I continue working with people, it's more about like the initial session is me doing a lot of the work for them. And beyond that, it's me holding space and showing them how to do it on themselves. Because to me, that's where the most impactful work can happen. I can only do so much for you. You came into this body to do the work on yourself. And no one knows this better than any therapist, right? Like I can't fix you, but I can hold space while I show you how to fix you. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're doing. So in between sessions, it's more about, keep a page in your notes on your phone of, oh my God, my mom just said this thing and I lost my shit. Mm-hmm. Or this thing happened, right? Because from there, that then shows me, what are we working on now? What are we untying next? And really the progression of what happens for most clients. Like I thought when I started doing this work that I was going to help people like quit smoking and lose weight faster. And I was going to do this energy work and change your vibe and all these things, find the person of your dreams.
You were going to be amazing because you were going to be the one that quick fixed it.
Right. In my mind, like, yes. And what ended up happening was people were saying, I can't quit my job, but I don't need to quit my job anymore because I'm not so stressed anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm not so overwhelmed. I'm present with my kids again. I am with my partner and like his breathing doesn't annoy me anymore. I can be with my mother-in-law in the room and I don't leave crying. I can be with her for 2 whole days and not shed a tear, right? So it was almost like people were getting their lives back. And we all work so hard to check the boxes, to have these beautiful lives full of abundance. And most of us feel so little of the actual abundance we've created. And what I've seen is that this work, it turns the volume up on the feeling good. Yeah. So I'm not saying that you're suddenly going to win the lotto or lose 80 pounds. It sounds like it
changes your relationship with your life, like how you see your life, right?
Yeah. And actually feeling it. Mm-hmm. The numbness goes away. You start to be able to feel the abundance again because you're not so afraid that if I feel good, something bad will happen. Like most of us hold it at arm's length.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about what if that experience that you just described with this walking into your home at that age and kind of tensing up isn't identifiable in this lifetime?
Well, Amy, that's where past life quantum healing comes in. For the low rate of, like, that's such a perfect
You like that segue?
infomercial moment. Love that. So what I found was there was a piece missing from my work. I was doing this energy work and I was getting people great results and it felt amazing. And honestly, what happened was I got a little bored and a little itchy, and I had seen a past life training come up a couple times, and I was intrigued a couple times, and I finally bit the bullet and did it just for the sake of having the knowledge of it. I didn't think this would become a part of my practice whatsoever. And as I was practicing it on clients, I realized there's only so much that we can clear from this current lifetime. And we know that ancestral trauma is real, and it doesn't quite make sense that past life trauma wouldn't be real. I had a fear of cats that made absolutely no sense. Like I freeze when I'm around a cat. And as I look at them and I see pictures of them, it doesn't make sense to me. They look cute. They look cuddly. I know they're soft. I've touched them before. And yet I have this insane thing that happens in my body where I freeze and panic. And nothing has ever happened to me with a cat before in my entire life. So what I found was, with the energy work, I was clearing stuff from this current lifetime. And with the past life sessions, I was seeing people go back and clear traumas from obviously past lives, which then the reason we call it quantum is by clearing it from the past, you clear it from the present and the future all at the same time. And that was like a much bigger layer of the work. When I put them all together, it was like, oh, now we're bringing you back into alignment with oneness and wholeness and deserving and self and love.
It's been a while since I've talked to you about what I'm up to. I want to first start by thanking so many of my supporters who have supported me on Patreon and in my Circle community. What's so exciting now is we have my new Circle community up and running, where if you want to contribute to supporting the podcast, you can do so at different levels for different values. So head on over to my Circle group. You can actually find the link in the show notes below. And there's opportunities to continue to support the podcast. And I have to say, your support of the podcast is frankly what has kept this podcast going over time. I have been funding the podcast solely by myself. I get a little bit of money in advertising dollars, but not a lot. So anything that you can give, if you have found value in this podcast, and it's not just giving without anything back, I will give back to you. You will be a part of this community with opportunities for discounts and conversations and ask Amy anythings. But it's a great opportunity for you to support what hopefully has helped you over the many, many years. Also, there's so many other ways now that you can work with me. I am offering a group course called Live Your Life Backwards, which is finishing its first cohort this winter and has been absolutely incredible. There's retreats coming up. There's workshops. There's one-on-one sessions with me. So many options that we can work together. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to my podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, where you will get a free soul wisdom workbook to help you dig deeper into the virtues that you want to be living in this lifetime. We all need so much more spirituality now. We are in a spiritual crisis, and I am giving you so many tools to tap into your own spirituality. So check out, and don't forget to subscribe to Life, Death, and the Space Between so you never miss an episode. So with this quantum healing, I go into a past life. Let me give an example. I have had past life regressions where I have been in a Western-ish scene where I was shot in the back with an arrow at my sacrum, because I've always had a lot of back issues.
Yeah.
I still have a lot of back issues. So
yeah.
I knew I did my past life regression. I knew that had happened to me. I still have back issues.
Yeah.
Like,
so what? Nothing
what's
changed.
missing here for me?
Okay. So the way that I do my past life quantum healings is because I do what I do and I can't unsee or unfeel what I see and feel. I'm also doing energy work while I'm working on the client who's in the past life session. And the way that I was taught, and I did the Dolores Cannon training and then kind of made it my own.
So for people who don't know who's Dolores Cannon, because she's like
Dolores Cannon is kind of like the mother of past life regression, I would say. And she was a huge, I mean, for really early on, like in the 70s, I think she started doing this work, and she created this training to help others learn how to do it. And the way that she does it is she puts you in a hypnotic state, and it's not a hypnosis where somebody doesn't know, you don't not know that you're laying on your couch on Zoom doing a past life healing. I've had people get up and let their dog in the room. I've had people get up and go to the bathroom and answer the door. Like for most of my clients, I would say 99% of my clients, they're very well aware that they're in this session, but words are coming out of their mouth that they aren't necessarily thinking of or drafting it to say. So when you're in that state, I'm able to take you into places where your soul is genuinely guiding you to see what is going to be the most impactful on this current place where you are in this current lifetime. What do you need to see and release and feel in order to amplify the experience and get into your more authentic soul state in this lifetime? And what can you clear? So when you're in there, the way that we start is we see 3 to 4 past lives, and then we call in your soul and ask your soul a list of questions that you, the client, have curated. So I would say to your soul, why does her back still hurt? Why is Amy's back still bad? What is it that we need to clear in order for her backache to release? Is there a message that you're trying to get through to Amy? And had I been in that session when I saw you get shot in the back, I would have said, is there anything in here that I can clear or that Amy can clear in order to release the physical sensation that she's still experiencing today in this lifetime? And if I can clear it, and then the client is the one speaking to me. So you, Amy, under hypnosis would say, yes, you can help me. And then I would say, okay, what I'm being shown to do is I want to pull that arrow out of your back, clean all of the debris that's around it, and then fill it with white light. Is that accurate? Is that what you want me to do? And then you, as your soul, will say yes or yes, but there's more to do. So it's like I'm communicating directly with your higher self / soul to be guided to how I can be of help as as that Sherpa, to move stuff around and rearrange things and clear things as needed. So that's what I think makes past life quantum healing that I do a little bit different than a past life regression. And I've done past life regressions, and it was interesting, but I kind of felt the same way you did. I was like, well, now what? I still have these same fears. Nothing, it was interesting and it's fascinating, but nothing changed for me. And that to me is annoying. Like my personality type, I want to know tools. I want to know how to tangibly change something that isn't working for me now. And if you're just going to point out that I have this thing that's messy, that's not helpful. Like my entire practice is about what do I do about it?
Right, which I love because that's also how I think about things too. It's like, I always say, so now what?
Yeah.
Like, you know this information, so now what? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
How are you going to change? How are you going to make things different?
Yeah.
So, and the thinking is because it's energetic, because our soul exists across space and time, maybe simultaneously, that as you're healing it in the past, although there is no past, right?
Right.
You're simultaneously healing it across all space and time.
Yeah. In the same way that if you had a cut and you put Neosporin, you cleaned it and put Neosporin and a Band-Aid on it and it healed, it's not just healing right now. It's then healed. When you have future lives, that cut is still healed. So I'm just going to that place. It's hard for our human 3D mind to get the no time and space thing.
Right, right.
But in that context, if I'm healing it then, it's healing now.
Right. I'm not coming into this life with that same cut on my finger.
Right.
But if you don't heal, like, let's go back to my getting shot in the back with the arrow. Because I didn't heal what could just be the physiological pain, but could also have been maybe emotional pain from that lifetime. If that didn't get worked through, it gets carried through till this lifetime and will get carried through to a next lifetime if I can't heal it.
In my opinion, yes. And like, yes, if it's going to serve you in this lifetime to have pain in your back and to use that as a way to do a past life regression session and to advance your evolution in that way, then yeah, you're going to have the curiosity about it. And it's going to annoy you enough that you're going to go to, in my mind, I'm going to try to simplify this. Any physical or emotional pain that we feel is there to get us to the next step.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In whatever way that works.
Mm-hmm.
It might be going to physical therapy and meeting somebody at physical therapy who then introduces you to somebody else.
I think it's
right?
that I could get my new walking pad and walk while I'm on Zoom calls.
Yes, 100%. But I would also say that the reason that past life regression didn't, I'm putting this in air quotes, heal you is because there's still something else for you.
There was just confetti that fell.
This is something that happens. I thought it was just a Zoom thing, but maybe it's a Mac thing. I don't know. There's something that is still connected to it that is trying to get your attention. There's still more juice in that lesson.
Okay.
It wasn't just about, I need to know that I was shot in the back. It's like, okay, I was shot in the back. Where am I still holding on to the fear that someone's going to stab me in the back in this lifetime?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where did I learn that as a little girl?
Well, and it was a friend. It was a friend in that lifetime.
I mean, there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much in there. Like we could do a whole podcast on you.
Ooh,
like
that sounds juicy.
What fears, beliefs, and doubts are still running in your subconscious mind that are pointing to, I might get stabbed in the back. Because it's not about the fear of getting stabbed in the back. It's the fear that I'm not safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the fear that if I trust somebody and I turn my back to them, I might not exist anymore. And even though your soul refuses to go along with that belief because your soul knows it can't not exist. On a soul level, on a oneness level, on a source level, of course you are safe. You've never not been safe. The reason you feel anxious or depressed or stressed is because you're telling yourself something that's not true. And the only way for your soul to let you know that you're lying to yourself is to make you uncomfortable. But as a culture, we've gotten really comfortable being uncomfortable. We have completely normalized lying to ourselves.
Yeah. But here's my question. So like, let's play this out. If that's the case, one might argue that I might have difficulty in relationships with people because I'm always on edge, right? Like that's one way that this could manifest.
Totally.
But I don't think it's manifested in that way for me. So like I have great friendships. I'm friends with women. I'm friends with men. But I'm trying to think about like how else it might, because it could manifest in many different ways, right? Like how that 100%. Shows up.
Yeah. And just because you have those good friendships and those good relationships doesn't mean it's not still showing up, right? It doesn't mean that it's not still in your vibrational pattern of, I'm going to be mindful of what I say because I don't want this relationship to go sour. Or I'm going to.
So it's like that same example you were giving earlier with
the
mom, which I think is interesting because do all of a kind of these core experiences that we have sort of shape us in those same ways, regardless of how we got there, right? There's those sort of core beliefs that get formed.
Yeah. From what I've seen, it's like peeling back layers of an onion, like anything else. And at the core of the onion, like the tightest layers, are the fear of being alone, the fear of not being safe,
The fear of not being loved.
the fear of being ignored, right? Like they're all the same theme.
Right.
Because really, we're only afraid of not being loved because if I'm not loved, I'm going to be alone. And if I'm alone, to me, that feels like almost like overwhelm. Right. And I've been in plenty of plant medicine experiences and journeys of having to face that, really look at it and face it of like, you are alone. You are the creator of all of this. You are completely alone and you are never alone. You are oneness. There is one. One is alone.
Right.
Right. So like wrapping my head around the bigness of it. And really what I'm trying to do in this physical form is find a way to be as comfortable and as safe as I can be in a human female body. And it's not going to be perfect. So in the example for you, Amy, it might not be showing up in your relationships in that way, but it might be there. Like your back is aching you for a reason. That's my point. I don't necessarily know what it is. And if you're my client, and if you want to do a podcast on this, I'm totally down to do it live. But I would be muscle testing and going in and asking your highest self, what is it that you're trying to get her to know? Because there's something there. And that's not to say that there's not a physical reason of why it hurts. Like if you got an MRI, there is. Yeah.
Right. But why is that my weakness and not my elbow? Right. Or whatever it is, my shoulder. Like that's where it's showing up for me.
Yeah. And in my experience, it goes
people
deeper
don't get
than
stabbed in the elbow. Right. That's not a cliche.
To be fair though, I've also had one of my clients is a physical therapist. She's done this for years. She has worked on a million parts of her own body and others, and she's an athlete. And she had this weird pain that was like in her lower ribs on the side, like not a normal athlete spot to have pain. We did a past life session and she was stabbed and we cleared it, healed it, moved on from it. And the pain is gone. Like she hasn't felt it since. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen 100% of the time, but it definitely happens. Once you understand it and know it and see it and heal it and know that you can let go of the fear of it happening. Because we usually hold on to these things.
Yeah, I was going to say,
as a reminder so it doesn't happen. Yeah. We're holding it because we want it to be the reminder that it won't happen again.
Right.
It's like why we won't forgive our victimizers. Like, well, if I forgive him, then I might forget to be aware that men can be scum and I have to be careful. Well, like that's not a real thing. It's just what my 7-year-old thought of how the world works. So once we let go of that piece and trust that, no, the adult me is actually still keeping me safe and I'm okay. And I have new tools than I had when I was 7, then I can move past it and I can let that pain go. And it might still come up and trigger me every now and then. And again, that's where I want you to grab your phone and write it in your notes and then reach out and say like, okay, here's the next layer. But it usually backs off.
So is the commitment to something like this usually like a long term, or you work through a specific issue, it gets cleared and you kind of go on and live your life? I mean, I'm thinking about this obviously like how I do therapy. Is this something that people are like continuing to clear? Or it's like you clear and then everything's good for a while. And then maybe, something comes up and you're like, oh, I'm noticing this, and this. I'm noticing I'm still getting triggered and I feel like I'm not fully myself. And then you go back in and you're like, oh, there's another layer here. It looks like when you were 3, this happened.
Yeah. This is another yes. And I really put this in the hands of the client where I ask people. So I do just a one-off, one-on-one where we lay down and I do the work. Anybody can book that and you can book it as many times as you want. But again, because I'm doing the work on you, there's only so much impact that's going to happen there. When I offer to either welcome you into a group that I've created where I'm doing all of this work on the regular.
Meaning you're doing you're going in, you're seeing what you're seeing, you're clearing out, you're healing, you're neosporing lots of people.
Yes. And I'm showing you how to do it for yourself. So those are what I call energy edits. And in the energy edits is where we're going back to figure out where the origin of that fear was programmed in when you were 5 and you realized, oh shit, that really sucked. I'm going to make sure I don't do that again. Program this thing in. Fear of being ignored because that was awful. I can do those in a group setting. So for somebody who's newer to this work, who just wants to see what this is like, there's a group alignment where everybody lays down and I clear the whole group. I do those monthly. Then you can book a one-on-one with me where I'm going to get specific on what are your fears, beliefs, doubts, and where are they in your body? And what memory do they go back to? That's just, you can book that anytime you want. Then I have a group program where I'm doing this bigger clearing, these edits as a group. And that's for people who want to dive in deeper. So that's for the client who knows that they have something going on, knows that they're getting triggered and they don't want this pattern to keep triggering them anymore. And they want to clear it. I have a container for that. And then for the more, I would say, advanced / curious / committed, I do work one-on-one with people and I ask those people to commit to 6 sessions. And it's all the work happens in our session when we're on Zoom together. It includes a past life quantum healing. And it's more of the all-encompassing work. Some people choose to just keep going because they love it and it's interesting and it keeps them sort of, it's like maintenance.
Right. It's
and
like
other
therapy.
people,
some people do the work and they're done. And some people are like, I want to keep going because I like having a space that's for me where I can process and work through and talk through things.
Yeah. But a lot of people will jump out for a little bit and then come back in. Like go figure out what the next version of the trigger is and go implement all the work we've just done. And then when you're ready, jump back in. It also depends on how much drama people have going on. If someone just like saw their kids off to college and they're empty nesters for the first time and they're traveling every month, no, like go live your life and enjoy.
Right.
But if it's like trigger after trigger after trigger, yes, keep me around so that instead of being at like a 10 out of 10 of I hate everybody, you're at like a 4 and you love people and you can enjoy the life. So it's really varied by the client.
So it really sounds like this is about, in many ways, clearing out the kind of karmic garbage that gets carried through and allowing you to live and see the brightness and fullness of life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really about truly embodying the feeling of the abundance you've created. Like if I asked you, Amy, to make a list of all the abundance you've created, you can make a really long list. And then if I asked you to get really brutally honest about how much you can feel it, like if we had some way of measuring how juicy you can feel a good feeling, like to me, there was the feeling of laying on the floor, watching my dog breathe and hearing her like bark in her sleep that like would fill my heart. Like it would almost get overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then there's the feeling of, I know I should be grateful for this. And like, it's not really landing.
Right. Right. And that's where sorry, go ahead.
I think most of us live in that it's not really landing, but I know I should, right? I intellectually know that this is great stuff. I know that I can walk to 3 grocery stores. That's lovely. But like, okay.
Right. But I don't think that there's a lot of people who have ever had the experience you're talking about where you're laying on the floor. Like they're not conscious enough because they're so, like trying to grasp at life, like trying to keep their head above water.
Right.
In
it's
many
just
ways.
up onto the next.
Right. That they don't even have that experience to like, there's like, when you just said that, there's probably 5 or 6 images that immediately come to my mind without even thinking that I know. I remember that fullness in my heart. Like I remember just feeling like I could explode right now
100%.
with love. Like I could even cry right now thinking about it. It was that powerful.
And to me, that's the truth of who we are. I'm not saying that you should be living that 24/7, but we should be we should be getting up there. And we are meant to be getting up there, and we were taught not to.
Right.
And so what I'm doing is I'm clearing a way so that you can come home to that. There's nothing broken about you. There's nothing that needs fixing. I'm clearing off all of the like ick that's been smushed all over you so that you can tap into that easier, because you've already created it. It's already there.
It's there because it's our birthright. It's how we come into this.
Yeah. And it's there because if you look around at the majority of our lives, the people that are listening to this podcast, 99% of humanity would trade lives with us in a heartbeat. And we miss it because we're so numb and we're so used to it. And we're so conditioned to fix what's not working versus to bask in what is. And so I'm helping clients embody the appreciation again.
Well, Lizzi, if people are interested, I always like to give people a place to share. You shared a little bit about what you're doing, but where can people find you? You do a lot of work with my dear friend, Robin and Karen on the Seeking Center. So I know if people want to find you there, that's also a great place. And I think hopefully in the future, you and I will be doing some stuff together there as they work to build out this amazing platform. But where else are people able to get a better understanding of what you do and if they want to work with you?
Okay, so my website is LizziCutler.com. It's LIZZICUTLER. There's no E. And I've been making a huge push on Instagram and TikTok to be so bold as to just think of something and say it and post it and not worry if I have makeup or hair done.
Good for you.
I'm posting a lot of stuff on there. Thank you. And I've actually launched a bunch of freebies. So like I have a 30-day abundance challenge. I have a bunch of meditations, and those are all on my website. So if you just want to see what it's like, you can check stuff out on my website. I offer a free 20-minute alignment call where I will muscle test for you what are the top like 2 or 3 blocks that are keeping you stuck. And it's a good way for us to just have a conversation and see if working together feels like a good fit. So that's also on my website. And Amy, I'm happy to send that to you if you want to share that.
Yeah, I'll share everything also in my show notes.
Oh, perfect.
That would be great.
Yeah. So Instagram and my website are kind of the best places to reach me.
And Instagram is the same handle, Lizzi Cutler. Okay.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I would have forgotten to say that. At Lizzi Cutler.
Well, I'm so glad we had this conversation. It's amazing to see. It's just so fun to see where people go in this space and how people really make it their own. And you've certainly done that. You've really like from where we were and like, what are we going to do? And are we going to be doing readings for people? And what is that going to look like to, and I think your sister was pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
It's almost 12. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Cause I've been a 11-year-old this weekend. So 2013 it probably was.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just excited to see and hear, hopefully people will book with you and hear their feedback and everything. Cause I know certainly the people that I've talked to who've done and had these experiences with you just rave about how incredible it is.
That is very sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is truly like I know that I'm still growing and I know I'm still learning, and I just appreciate that I get to do this work.
Aren't we always?
Yeah.
I feel like if we're done growing and learning, we're in the ground in this lifetime.
Yeah, time to go.
Right.
Time to go. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks to all the listeners.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.